Okay, how's it, gang? 2021 Captain Study Group in full effect. Here we go, week 3, and this week's lesson is going to be on presentation. And I'm going to go over this in midweek too, because there's a lot of info to cover. But when I say presentation, I'm not just talking about your PowerPoint per se, if you were to make it to the interview process as a captain's candidate, but presentation also includes how you interact in the assessments, how you answer questions, your poise, and all of that is included when I'm talking about presentation. So yes, there will be a focus on the presentation that you do as a part of the captain's package, and focusing both on the approach to it as well as some of the technical details I've noticed over the years, but it will also include just in how you communicate with your audience. So again, long lesson. I'm going to go over it for the next 2 weeks. So first, before I get into that, I wanted to address or answer or talk about why are we doing this, or why specifically am I doing this? And then also I want you to think about why you're here. So for me, why I'm doing this is because when I look at the department and where we can go in the future, so the why for me is because I believe with the talent and the people we have in our department, that our department can really be, cutting edge in leadership as a fire service department across the country. I really believe in that. So if I have tools that can contribute to that, can help put some of you in a better place to approach that, then absolutely I want to help out. So why I do it is because really, and this is not just towards the captain's candidates, this is to anyone that's in our department and all of you in this course, but why I do it specifically is because I believe in the best version of each of you, and I believe that you can reach that version. So it's a work in progress. Everyone is at different stages in their career and different stages with what they're trying to do within their career. But just know that I believe in the best of each of you, and if I can help develop that or add something new, a new wrinkle to your game or a new skill, then I wanna be a part of that, and I want to help you out. So in turn, what I would ask is, you'd be surprised, or maybe some of you have gone through this, not everyone has, but a lot of people in our department don't have hype men or don't have those confidence builders for them in their careers. I know I had a few years where I didn't have that, and it can be tough. So if you're in this course or you're in this study group with us, I ask that, again, like I said last week, you roll it forward. If you can roll this forward as well too. So by that I mean, show your company members, show others in the department that you believe in them and you have confidence in them, and tell them that. And this is this is for anybody. This isn't just for a battalion chief all the way down to the lowest firefighter 1. Anybody can do it at any level. Even if you're a 3 or 4 year firefighter 1, let your cap know, yeah, I believe in you, I have confidence in you, the way you lead us, because that helps. Just because you get promoted to captain doesn't mean you automatically have it all figured out all of a sudden, like, oh, well, I didn't know this yesterday, but now I'm a captain, so I know it today. It doesn't work like that, right? So just believe in others and communicate that to them. If you're firefighter 1, let your fellow firefighters know that. If you're a captain, let your firefighters know that. And it's not the kind of thing where you're lying like, well, I don't actually believe in them, because that's not true, because you can believe in every person in some way. Even if they're not at a point where they're meeting your expectations, you can believe in them, that you can support them and help them get to where they'll be better, your company will be better, and you can enhance the role on the company. So just keep that in mind. So now I ask you to think about, why are you here? Why are you here in this study group? And some of the feedback has been that some people may want to join this study group for the wrong reason, and that's only to get promoted, right? Again, let's talk about, you don't just ramp up for a promotional process. This is all reflected in what you do in your day-to-day activities as a firefighter. So when we look at this promotional process, what I don't want you to do is disassociate what we're doing here from how this reflects in a bigger picture. Example is, I'm getting a lot of feedback that, oh, these assessments are hard. They're hard. And well, yeah, they're supposed to be. You're trying to become a fire captain in the department. They're supposed to be challenging. And again, these are controlled environment assessments. So by that I mean is if you're actually going on a call type or dealing with an issue that you're getting in an assessment, you should have this foundational knowledge. Again, as a guideline, how you choose to apply it will depend on so many factors, but it starts with knowing the guidelines. So yeah, the assessments are supposed to be challenging because we're expecting that as a captain, you're going to be able to go out and perform this in the real world. So that's part of why there is this challenge. So keep that in mind, right? So I say don't associate what we're doing in this study group. Same with like I said in week 1, have talks, communication with your family members about this process. Well, again, that's something that should just be ongoing. Obviously, a lot of you know that the divorce rate is high in the fire service, and part of that reason is because what we do end up doing is we end up living 2 separate lives, where we live our home life and then we live our fire service life. And if we can't reconcile those two, it makes our both lives challenging. So you have to be open and honest with your family, and then also always have people that you can talk to relieve that stress or that can understand what you're going through. So again, that's another thing where that's what we're saying in here in this study group, but that's actually something that applies outside of this study group. So yeah, just always, this study group wasn't set up randomly. When you look at things that we're doing in the study group, it was done on purpose based on how it can relate to our careers, right? Same with, I mentioned in the midweek, how we read the SOGs. We shouldn't be ramping up to read the SOGs just now. That's an ongoing process that we should be going through, putting in time to do every single day. So that's just one of the things I wanted to mention. And the last is, I didn't want to create, I hope I didn't create a false impression because I was going through the numbers, right? 83, 84 drivers or firefighter 3s, 40 something will qualify, 50 will qualify, maybe 38, 40 will actually take the exam. So you need to look at scoring this. So what I didn't want to do, that was just more for data. But what I don't want to do is create a thing where you start comparing yourself to others. So I know like some of it is like you might, or some guys are like, oh, how much is he studying? Well, I got to study more. How is he studying? Well, I got to do that and I got to do this, right? We start comparing ourselves to others. But ultimately, like we talked about in week 1, you set your schedule. So validate how you study, how much time you have to study, and then set it up to put max effort in. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter how anyone else is studying. You have to study to your max potential. And that's going to come with understanding yourself and then setting up a good system. So a lot of us have played sports, and yeah, happened to me. I'm sure we can all think of examples where we were the more talented or on the better team as far as talent, but we got out-coached. So if you think of it from that point of view, that's very much like what we're doing here, right? It doesn't matter how talented, how smart you have been in the past in promotional exams or testing. What counts is how much effort you can put in and that you set up something effective for what you're doing. And again, this relates back to our day-to-day, right? Setting up our career, setting up our day-to-day schedule so that we can be deliberate and accomplish what we're trying to do. So, but back to comparing ourselves to others. So like a little story is, a lot of you know my favorite basketball team is the Boston Celtics, and right now the Boston Celtics have 2 stud wings, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. But a lot of the narrative is focused on Jason Tatum. He's just the more popular guy. Even though personally Jaylen Brown's my favorite basketball player in the league. But so Jaylen Brown, as Jason Tatum's getting all the kudos, all the accomplishments, all the All-Star nods, the All-NBA. One of the things a reporter asked Jaylen Brown was, well, how do you feel about that? And Jaylen Brown said, you got to want for your brother what you want for yourself. So that's something I want you guys to keep in mind is ultimately you're not competing against anybody else. You're competing to make the best version of yourself. And that translates to study habits. That translates to this promotional process. This translates to the effort you put in the day-to-day aspects of your career. So just wanted to say that right quick. Now moving into the presentation portion. So presentation. So as you guys know, part of the captain's package now is that you perform a 7 to 10 minute presentation. It doesn't explicitly say it has to be PowerPoint based, but it's pretty much implied that it should be PowerPoint based. So the first thing to start off with is topics. Usually there's going to be a few different topics, but they'll always be kind of centered around the same thing. So what I would say is whatever idea you have to do, you can probably fit it into one of the topics. So by that I mean the topics are always something like, what would be a proposal for a new program or initiative in the fire department? Or what is a current program, training program, cadre, initiative, committee in the fire department that you can think could be improved, and how? So, or another is, what are changes you could see being made to the SOGs, or changes you could see in a process that we do within our daily work schedule? So it's always something where something you already do or something you've already been thinking of can be included in a topic. So I'm going to make 3 points as far as the communication and the selection process, which is this. So the first point I want to make is, when you pick your topic, you should pick something that you're already attached to, that you already work on, and that you know thoroughly. So what you don't want to do is you focus so hard on trying to impress the interview panel, or trying to you just want to hit a home run, that you pick something that you're not familiar with. Because if you've given a presentation, the presentation process in the interview is already challenging enough. I mean, you're thinking about poise, body language, the way you speak, the way you orate, all these different things. So with that already as a fixed, why would you want a variable such as a topic that you may not know thoroughly and may struggle on? So that's why I say pick a topic that you already know, you've already been working on. Don't think you have to pick some exotic topic to try and impress them. Stick to what you know. And the reason also for this is because the way I look at the presentation is, when I hear guys talk, it's like, 7 to 10 minutes. That's a long time. I don't even know if I can hit 7 minutes. My point of view is, I can't even finish my presentation in 10 minutes. So we have the same thing for BCs and captains, right? 7 to 10 minutes presentation. So I think my 3 BC ones, I ended up having to cut myself short because I couldn't even finish my presentation in 10 minutes, which is a problem in itself, because that shows that I have trouble editing. But my point is, if you're talking about something that you're passionate about and that you're knowledgeable about, you should have no problem filling 10 minutes. So that should already be a clue that if you can't fill 7 minutes, then maybe this is not the right topic. So pick something you know and that you're comfortable with, because there's all the other variables. You want that to just be something solid that you can nail out of the park. So the other thing with that too is, when you do that, your passion, your knowledge, first of all, let's start with passion. Your passion will be much more evident, right? So it's something you're already doing, it's something you're vested in. It may be something the department knows you're invested in or vested in, and now you have the opportunity to highlight it. So say, for example, why do a lot of good ideas die in the department? Well, it's because we come up with one good idea, and then we tell one person, so yeah, I have this great idea. I go and I talk to Fire 2. He's like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Take it to Fire 3. So I take it to Fire 3. I might say, okay, well, here's a good idea. Okay, yeah, we'll work on that. And then it kind of gets bounced around like this, and maybe 2-3 years later, 5 years later, they might be, hey, Colin was talking about doing this. Now we can hit him up for it, or we can ask him to look into it. Versus in this format, you have 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, or 2, 3 BC sitting down, attentive to you all together, and this is really a lob for you to knock something out of the park and sell them on something. So this is, if you're doing something you're passionate, you're already involved in, the BCs might, or the interview panel might already know you're involved. Like say let's say you're a cadre member on, I should have thought of this ahead. Let's say you're a cadre member on wellness and fitness. Okay, you're a cadre member on wellness and fitness. And if you look at the history of wellness and fitness, it's always been kind of stop, go. Health and safety has a small portion. Getting out Fire 4 has a small portion. Now we're making a committee with these subject matter experts in our department. He runs his own gym. He's a fitness expert. He's a certified personal trainer, whatever. All these guys have had different input over the years, but there's never been anything consolidated. So let's say now you're a member on that committee and you come in for an interview, and it's not that you don't actually know. So maybe the chiefs actually want a solid answer. We want the committee consolidated under one umbrella, but we've never heard the right pitch, right? That could be a very legitimate reason. That's why going 10, 15 years, it hasn't happened, right? So maybe you do your research, you've been involved 5 years, you're passionate about health, passionate about fitness, and you have a little background in organization, building processes, and you talk to health and safety, you know, what's your portion? You talk to Fire 4, you talk to the committee, you talk to the different CPTs in the department, and now you formulate a plan, consolidated. Well, here, now I'm going to pitch this one program to coordinate all the different parts: purchasing, designing program, implementation of workouts, standardizing workouts, and you pitch that, right? Maybe you just solved a problem that they've been looking for an answer to for a long time. So again, because you were involved and it's something you're passionate about, it was a very, very more successful sell on your part. So now the second topic I want to talk about, the second point I want to make, is how you format your interview. So by that I mean, how do you arrange your interview? Your presentation. How do you arrange your presentation? So as I mentioned before, all my presentations are on the shared drive. BAT2 training, I think BC4, BAT2 training, presentations, BC presentations, something like that. If you go into my BC4 folder and follow, you'll be able to find it. But I put all my presentations, so I believe my 3 BC presentations are in there, and I want to encourage you guys to go look at them. Feel free to look at them. What you think was good about them, what do you think was bad, and then you can take those tips and use them for yourselves in what has been shown and what has worked and what has not been worked. Seeing as I had to go 3 times and I gave 3 presentations, mine are probably crap, but regardless, there'll be examples of what you can use. So at the time, our department head had a very specific format that he liked. He had a bias towards using, and that was the task, purpose, end state. So that's how he liked things submitted to him. State the task, what the purpose is, and what it will look like after. Task, purpose, end state. So if you go and look at mine, I personally do not like that format, but because that was what the department head at the time liked, I use that format to try and meet his need or meet his desires, I guess, for lack of a better word. But so task, purpose, end state. If you're asking me, my preferred way to set up your presentation should be why, how, what. So for example, if we're looking at it from the task, purpose, end state, the first thing you're going to state is what you're trying to do. So what you're trying to do. I want to improve the we're going to set up one committee to oversee purchase. We're going to set up one committee to oversee purchase, development of physical fitness, and coordination and evaluation. And how we're going to do that is by setting up a committee with 3 separate subcommittees, with each focused on a different part. And then the end state is we'll have a consolidated fitness program that is successful and is all on the same page and meets the needs of the department. Yeah, perfectly legitimate way to do it. But if you were to ask me why I say why, how, what, is because if you're knowledgeable about a topic and you have a passion for it, and so one thing I want to state real fast is the presentation is an exercise in being able to present and being able to orate and being able to talk and speak, and that's really the challenge, and that's really what you're being graded on. But what you should have an expectation on is if you nail it out of the park and it's a good idea, it's gonna happen. And I would say this happens every couple presentations. So you cannot just present something phony per se. You have to present something real that could be tangible, because this really might happen. Wow, that's a great idea. Guess what? You're in charge. Make it happen. Give us something deeper. Give us a proposal within 1 month, 30 days. and not, oh, okay, I thought this was make believe. It's not make believe, but so when you go with the format I prefer, which is why, how, what, Simon Sinek, if you go with that, when you start with why and you have a passion and you have heart for it and you have enthusiasm, what you're going to get is you're going to get buy-in. So, you know, I'm presenting a topic. I'm presenting on MFD, wellness and fitness. I'm really running with this topic. I should have picked a topic I was more familiar with. But okay. Hi, my name is Colin Aquino. I'm presenting a topic on wellness and fitness. And why am I exploring this? Why am I moving forward with this topic? Because I believe paramount to our mental health within the department is also our physical health, and the two are interrelated. And in the past, we've had different parts of a whole, but we've never had a whole. So I believe by bringing together all the different parts, we can really produce and put out the best product for our employees to take care of their physical health, and that also relates to their mental health, which will instill in our workers a sense of wellness and being, and increase our productivity for the department, for the chiefs as firefighters. Now, how we're going to do that is, in the past we've had different parts, and so what I want to do is have one set up consolidated committee that can meet quarterly and have different discussions on purchasing, what type of equipment, what kind of workouts we set up, and then this is what we're going to do. See, same thing, just in a reverse order. So you get that buy-in, you let them know up front, this is what I'm talking about, and why I'm talking about, why it's important is this. So, okay, I'm listening, right? So when you present your topic, don't be afraid to show your heart, show your passion. This is not a, where am I thinking? This is not a business presentation where you're in a boardroom and you're trying to present something super slick and super well rehearsed, right? That's not what this is about. This is about an exercise in presenting and poise. And now you're going to show them that you have passion, because when you show that you have passion in this presentation, you're not just showing, again, right? Nothing's disassociated, nothing's disconnected. You're not just showing that you have passion for this topic, you're showing that you have passion for the department. Like, they're like, oh wow, he put thought into this. He's vested in us. He's vested in being here. He's vested in wanting to be leadership, right? Nothing's disconnected. So always keep that in mind. And then the third is, don't just recycle old topics. So by that I mean, if you are going to, you have to show updates. You have to show that if there's been any developments that you've adjusted and you've met those developments. So for example, for me, one of mine was running the numbers on mental and occupational health and how the department could improve in support, right? Provide free cancer screening, provide doctoral level interventions if needed, which we just started doing a couple months ago, and having more consolidated tools, right? And then changing the way that we view peer support, more of a need versus an ask, but different points to that to improve our mental and occupational health. So when I gave that topic first in 2018, I was using data from the previous year, right? There were more firefighter line of deaths from suicide versus fireground. For example, I think it was like 110, I shouldn't even quote numbers if I don't know it, but it was around 110 line of deaths from suicide versus 90 something for fireground, 93, 94 for fireground. Point was, more people were dying because of mental health than actual firefighter injuries, which is the data I was trying to present. So now I reused this topic for another presentation in 2020. So in that, I'm not just gonna bust out the same old PowerPoint and go over it. I'm gonna make sure it's updated. Okay, well, this was the original task, purpose, end state. This was the original proposal. We've implemented some of these tools. So I'm gonna update that, reflect that. And then also I'm gonna update the data. So I believe it was in 2019, was it 2020? Yeah, 2019 was, at that point, firefighter suicides were more than double the line of duty deaths. So I definitely need to update the information. I can't present a topic in 2020 with information from 2015, 16, 17. So when I say don't recycle, I'm not saying don't reuse old topics, but you have to update them to what's currently going on, new data. So Why I say this is because a lot of you that are in here and are going to go in for captain's interviews are on cadres, and some of you are players on cadres, as in program directors or lead instructors. So what I'm saying is the interview panel will already be somewhat, if not very familiar with your work and things that you may have already pitched in the past. So what you should do is you should take the opportunity to give it a fresh approach. So say you're helo ops, and in the past, okay, Dunker training, required PPE this. Now that we're moving into a new helicopter, for example, a new helo, this is a perfect example to pitch a new program for familiar firefighters with the new helo and the tools that can be used. That's one example. Another example is perhaps you're on the EMS cadre and there were changes in 2020 because of COVID that changed the way that our CMEs were required. Basically, they allow more CMEs distance synchronous versus in-person synchronous. So if you look at that, that brings down the cost of the overall program with that new data. Maybe now you go back in and you pitch, now is the time for us to move forward towards EMT because the program is cheaper and the need is there more than ever because of COVID, how COVID changed the way we respond, right? Using current information to freshen up old ideas. So that's the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to how do you pick and present your topic. So now real fast, I'm going to go into some of the technical details that I see. So first is, don't overdo it with graphics. I see people put GIFs and too many, and like fancy pictures that distract. So at the same time, you don't want your entire presentation to be exposition, right? Expository, where you're just spouting off information continuously for the 7 to 10 minutes. Because it is narrow, you do want it to be heavily with a lot of exposition, but not completely. So I'd say like 80%. So within that, you should still have relevant graphics, relevant pictures. You should be able, even mix in there, to be able to tell maybe a 1 to 2 minute analogy to kind of break up just that constant flow of information. But on the flip side is I see what guys try and do is, because they're not comfortable meeting that 7 to 10 minutes, is they try and load it with too much graphics, too much things that they think will eat up time, but that's not the goal. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, even if it takes practice, you should be willing and able to easily meet that 10 minutes. You should be looking to edit that 10 minutes. Like, oh, I'm over talking. How can I cut this down and make it more relevant? Much like I do in these videos. They should be half the time they are, but I just end up rambling. So editing, but again, don't overdo it with graphics. That's what I see often, where it becomes like too distracting. You're missing the point of the PowerPoint because guys are maybe giggling or focused on your graphics and not listening to you. The second is you want to make sure that your formatting is structured, so you create an opportunity for repeating and repetition of information. So if you always think the easiest way to do that is go back to school as in an essay format. So you want to have an intro, a body, and a conclusion. So if you think about this, and don't hold me to this, I'll do a longer PowerPoint later as a separate class. It's like an hour long. I already designed it. I just have to film it like this. But let's say you have a 10-minute presentation. So depending on your talking speed, how loaded your presentation is with information, it should be about 10 to 15 slides. So a title slide, intro or table of contents slide. On the back end, you have closing slide and conclusion slide. So that is already 1, 2, 3, 4. You're already down 4 slides, so now you have 11 slides to focus on for the body. So even that's just a 7 to 11 slides to focus on for the body. So even that's just a rough tool you can use in how you set up. But the point is, whatever you're trying to communicate, when you have it formatted like that, you have an intro, body, conclusion, you're going to go over your main points through repetition at least 3 times, because you're going to mention it in the introduction, you're going to go over it and elaborate it in the body, and then you're going to summarize it again in the conclusion. So you're clearly explaining and clearly reiterating what your idea is or what the topic you're focusing on is. So I see a lot of guys, they just kind of have their slide, their presentation can be just kind of start to finish, not necessarily structured, where their information is just kind of, it's more of an information sharing versus a story that you're trying to tell. So just keep that in mind. So repetition and then format the structure. And then the last thing I want to talk about that I see a lot of people do is that they put all their information in the PowerPoint. So by that I mean they actually have sentences or even paragraphs, and then they turn to the PowerPoint and read it. So for me, as somebody watching that, is I can read. I don't need you to read it to me. I want to hear you present. I want to hear you talk about it. So a lot of times, or maybe if you took Fire Instructor 1, you may have heard of this. It's the 6x6 rule, which I think is a little stringent. But basically the 6x6 rule is that you should have no more than 6 bullets with 6 words per bullet per slide of information. And again, I think that's a little stringent. I would loosen that a little, but basically what you focus on in your presentation are phrases that work as prompts. So for example, if you see, back to the mental health one. So this many pre-cancer health screen, so firefighters have a 3 times higher rate of cancer than the public. So that might be a phrase, and when I speak about, so firefighters have a 3 times higher rate of cancer versus people in the public. Firefighters contract cancer at 63% versus the public is 21%. I made those numbers up. But so what it is, it's a prompt for you to elaborate on the information so that they can hear you present and talk, and that they can hear you talk passionate about what you believe in. So again, don't overstuff your presentation with words, sentences, and paragraphs. Use phrases that work as prompts. So when you see that, so you turn, you look at your slide, you read, and now you turn back to your audience, you turn back to the interviewers, and now you present the information to them, right? They don't want to just hear you read off the PowerPoint. They want to hear you explain your topic to them. So use that as prompts. Again, there's a 6x6 rule. You don't have to be stringent to that. One exception to that I might include, though, is that if you have data, if you have numbers, don't be afraid to include your data, include your numbers in the presentation. But even with that, just be ready to elaborate on them, right? You don't want everything in the presentation. Those are supposed to be talking prompts and talking points for your presentation. And then, so why I would encourage you to go and look at my presentations is because as a learning lesson, like I say, I joke, but no, I did 3, so they must not be very good. But the point is, for me personally, like reflecting back, is I never corrected mine. I kept it exactly the same. And so that's part of knowing your audience. So for example, mine are very information heavy, mine are long, and I never finished mine in time. And again, that's not as bad, but it's the same point as running short, right? I don't know how to edit. I don't know how to consolidate my information to make it effective. So why did I do that? I don't know, various reasons. And so basically I always kept mine information heavy, and they really should have been edited down. So again, even when you look at mine, don't think mine are some kind of gold standard. Mine needed work. And even now, if I look at them, I was proud of them in the moment. But like I say, you always got to update. If I had the chance to redo them or do them now, they'd be much different. They would be much more reflective of growth. And that's the whole point to this. But so yeah, feel free to go and look at mine and understand that those are only examples. They're not good examples. They're not bad examples. They're only examples. And yeah, guys, that's that's today's video lesson. And as I said, midweek, Wednesday, I'll put out another one, and that one will talk about a little bit, elaborating on this, but talk a little bit more about knowing your audience. Like when you communicate, right? Understand the sender, receiver, and who you're talking to. And I'll talk about my own personal challenges with that and the lessons I learned, having been through so many interviews over and over and over. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for today. And again, feel free to send me questions, text, call, send it to the Gmail, and then I'll also include any follow-up questions in the midweek. And that is all I got for today. Aloha.